Hello, welcome to the Biological Anthropology Lab. My name is Brianni Ferguson. I'll be your instructor for this course. You guys can call me Brianni, Miss Brianni. Most students call me Miss B. I do ask that you don't call me Miss Ferguson, just because it makes me feel kind of old. But I wanted to introduce myself to you guys. You guys can introduce yourselves in the discussion post for this week. But to start us out, I am a graduate student here at WSU. This is actually my last semester before I finish my thesis, so you guys might be the very last class that I teach. I teach 3 sections of this course, so I have about 100 students altogether. I'm originally from Missouri. I did my undergrad at Southeast Missouri State University, which was just a really awesome experience. I had an incredible mentor. We worked with law enforcement a lot, so they would actually bring human remains into our lab, and I was kind of one of the lead handlers for that. I would help to create biological profiles for those individuals in the hopes of identifying them. So we worked on a little over a dozen while I was there, and 5 of those were actually solved, so that was just really, really awesome. I am the oldest of 6 kids. I am also a first-generation student. Also, I am not in my normal recording space right now. I was visiting friends in Missouri, and I'm kind of trapped here with the storm. Likewise, I would like to apologize to you guys for this getting to you so late. I had planned to have it to you earlier in the week, and that just was not possible. Teams was not wanting to work correctly for me. It's still giving me a couple of issues, but it's fine. Regardless, we're gonna move on ahead. So for today, I do just want to kind of run through the syllabus with you guys, explain some of that, as well as a quick little lecture into what anthropology even is, because I know many of you guys have no previous experience with anthropology. So I think it's good to give you a little bit of an explanation for what this subject is and what we do in it. So to get started, let's go over the syllabus. All right, so first of all, let's talk about my office hours. They are Thursdays from 10:30 to 12 p.m. in Neff Hall 218. I don't have an individual office. My office is located within the Biological Anthropology Lab. So if you do come in person, you might see people working on our collection, so you might see human remains. So just kind of be aware of that. There is a separate room that we can go if you want to discuss anything more personal, or kind of more private, like your grades. Likewise, I fully understand, especially with you guys as online students, that it may not be possible for you to come to my in-person office. So I do take appointments. We can do a virtual meeting through Teams. Just shoot me an email. If these times don't work for you guys, we can also schedule something outside of them as well. You also don't have to use the office hours just to ask questions. Like if you just need to talk to somebody, you are welcome to come and talk to me. I really enjoy talking to students, so, feel free. I'll let you guys read this on your own, but I do want to point out this section here. So as part of this course, you guys will view human and non-human skeletal remains. It is very important that you maintain respect during this process, especially for our human remains. While these are ethically sourced cadavers, people that donated their bodies to science, they still deserve some privacy and respect in their death. So under no circumstances are you guys allowed to save any of that material, to share any of that material, or to take photos of any of that material. If I find out that somebody has, there will be university action because it is extremely unethical to participate in those behaviors. I don't require a textbook for this class, but I know that you guys are probably going to have this textbook right here, although I think it has been updated to the 10th edition by now, if you're in the 101 course. So you can use that. It will go into the same topics that we cover in this class, so it might be helpful to you if you feel like you need that extra information, but it isn't required. Class protocol, this is pretty standard. You guys are adults. I expect you to act like it. Be respectful to each other, be respectful to me. All grades are earned in this course, so you guys do need to, prepare, check the schedule for assignments and stuff, be prepared for all those. Since you aren't in the in-person lab section, participation is very hard for me to measure. So I do really ask that you guys, watch all the videos that are uploaded, read all the material that's uploaded, participate in the activities and kind of games that are included. To be successful in this class, you really should be checking your student email every single day, as well as logging into the course at least 3 times a week. Because you guys aren't in person, I don't really have any other way to reach you guys aside from email and like Blackboard announcements. So you need to be checking those in case anything is updated or there's delays on something. It is your responsibility to be up to date with that. My contact policy, I'm pretty lenient. You can message me through email, through Blackboard messages. Of course, you can also put any questions that you have in the discussion post. I do ask that if you email me that you include the CRN number because I have 3 sections of this class. 2 of them are online. So if you just tell me that you're in the online section, it's not really that helpful. And, especially if it's something about a grade or an assignment or accommodations, it's really helpful for me to have that CRN number so that I can find you easier instead of having to go through 3 rosters. But you can also message me through Blackboard. I check that very frequently. Always email me from your WSU email address. Other emails will end up in my spam, so I just won't see them. Please don't contact me for tech support. I'm really terrible with computers. I probably won't be able to help you. If it's a general tech issue, you need to contact Blackboard support or the WSU tech team. However, if it is a problem with like accessing or uploading your assignments, do let me know about those before the assignment is due because that might be something that I can fix on my end. Response time, I really prefer that you guys not, send me a whole bunch of emails during the weekend or really late at night. I'm trying to have a better work-life balance. So while I might see those emails, I'm not going to respond to them until the next business day. So just plan ahead, try not to, send stuff during the weekend or, whatever, unless it's an emergency. Your grade is not an emergency. It might feel like it sometimes, but it's really not. So, don't message me really late on a weekend freaking out about your grade. I'm not going to respond to it until the next Monday. But I do take communication with you guys very seriously. So you can expect to receive a response within 2 business days. Honestly, I typically respond within the day that you send me the message. Feedback on assignments. I'm going to let you guys know right now. Historically, I am a very slow grader. I don't have like another TA to help me grade. I also don't have a, actual professor in the department that helps me grade. This class is entirely led by me, and I have 100 students. So some assignments take a little bit longer to grade. They're a little bit more complex. Sometimes I have other obligations in the university to take care of. Sometimes I just have general life stuff going on. So while my goal is always to get feedback to you guys within 2 weeks of the due date for an assignment, it may be extended sometimes. But if that happens, if there's going to be a serious delay, I will let you guys know in Blackboard announcements. You guys can read this stuff on your own. I do want to point out here, though, I do consider using AI, so ChatGPT, Gemini, any of those kind of AI systems, to be cheating. If you are using them just as a tool to kind of like clean up your writing, to check for grammar, that kind of stuff, that's fine. You should not be using it to answer questions, though. And honestly, I just don't recommend it. AI is not very knowledgeable about anthropology, and it gets a lot of things incorrect. And I can tell when you guys use AI. I'm young enough. I've actually done freelance work training AI. I know how to recognize it. The first time that I notice that you are really using AI to like answer questions for you, we will have a discussion about it. If it continues to be an issue, I will report it to the university, and you will lose points on that assignment or that quiz that you use it on. I follow the standard WSU grading scale. I also I round your final grades up to the next whole number, so you don't need to message me at the end of the semester asking me to round it up. I already do it. Your assignments are all going to be due on Sundays at 11:59, unless I notify you otherwise, but your assignment due dates are pretty set in stone. Unless something like seriously unexpected happens, you're probably not ever going to get a notification with a due date change. Within this class, there are 3 main graded kind of assignments or topics. The first is quizzes. So there are 4 quizzes. They're worth 25 points each. These are timed, but you have 20 to 25 minutes to do them, and they're only 5 questions. So you definitely should have enough time to do that. They will open on Wednesdays and close on Sundays, so you have a couple days to do them. Try and plan ahead, though. You will have a lab assignment pretty much every week. These are worth 20 points each. This is basically your homework for this class, especially since you aren't in person. The only real note that I have on these is that they must be submitted in a PDF format. Please do not share a Microsoft like document or, a Word doc, whatever with me. If you have a MacBook especially, don't save your assignments as dot pages. I cannot open them if you do that. They need to be submitted as a PDF. And then your final project will be about primatology. You guys will sign up for a primate later in the semester, and we will go into more detail in a later video about this as we get closer to this time. But you will basically just record yourself giving your PowerPoint presentation. I do need to see you and your PowerPoint in the video. Your presentation should be between 3 to 5 minutes. Should discuss all of the topics that are going to be included in the instructions for this project on Blackboard. And then you must submit it as an MP4 file. Again, if you share it through Microsoft Teams recordings or PowerPoint recordings or whatever else, I won't be able to open it. So it must be submitted as an MP4 file. The last thing that you'll see in this class is discussion posts for each week. These are completely optional. They are not graded. The first one is just a way for you to introduce yourselves. After that, they will just kind of act as a space for you guys to ask questions. These can be about the homework, these can be about the lecture. Maybe it's just something that the material made you think of that you want to share or that you're interested in learning more about. Ask all that kind of stuff in the discussion post. You can also use these discussion posts as a way just to kind of talk to each other. Just keep it respectful. Also, if you know the answer to something, you can go ahead and respond to another student. I really want you guys to like work together if you are confused about something, because if you have a question about, whatever with an assignment that week or the lecture that week, chances are somebody else has had the same question. And it really just saves me from answering 8 of the same email that ask the exact same question. I do check these discussion posts very often, so I will answer any questions that, are put in there relatively quickly. Here's our assignment breakdown for your points. Missed and late assignments. I'm not the strictest about late assignments, so if something comes up and you can't let me know ahead of time that it's going to be late, let me know afterwards. You have 2 business days after it's late to let me know what was going on so that you can still submit it. Also, if you're late by just a couple hours, so, everything's due at 11:59, maybe you had a lot going on and you end up submitting it at 3 in the morning instead, that's fine. You don't need to email me about that. I'm not grading it at 3 in the morning, so that's not really late enough for me to care that much. But if it's gonna be more than, like, a day late, then you should go ahead and send me an email explaining why it's gonna be late. Likewise, if you are submitting stuff consistently, like, very late, like a week or more late throughout the semester, there will be a grade reduction of 10% per day late, because that puts me behind on grading, which is just a headache, and it's not really fair to other students. So, try and be reasonable about not submitting a lot of late assignments. I am more strict about your quizzes and your final. So I do not allow quizzes to be made up unless I know about an issue ahead of time. Obviously, if there's an emergency, like you end up in the hospital, let me know. We can work something out. But you guys have multiple days to do these quizzes, and I send out announcements reminding you of the quizzes before they open. They'll tell you, how much time you have to complete them, which material they cover, what kind of questions are included. So there just really isn't a good excuse to not turn a quiz in on time. The final especially cannot be late. That is due at 11:59. If it's not submitted at 11:59, it will not be graded. I do offer extra credit in this class. It's kind of built into the course. So the first way that you can get them is through the entry and exit surveys. These are a really easy way to get extra credit points. They're optional, but I do suggest doing them. They really just help me understand what you guys are looking for or what can be improved in this class. And while I won't be teaching this class probably next semester since I'll be graduating, I do want to leave a well-created class for whatever other graduate student comes in to teach this in the future. The last way that you can get extra credit is the quizzes. So there will be 1 extra credit question on each quiz. It'll be worth 3 points. So altogether, you can get 12 extra credit points from the quizzes. I will say though, extra credit opportunities are not free points. So just completing it is not enough to automatically get those points. If you are not putting any effort into it and it's very obvious, then you won't receive full points for it. All right. Our course schedule, this is pretty set in stone. So if you're somebody that likes to have a planner, you can go ahead and put all these due dates in. You can see our quizzes are roughly every 3 weeks. There is no homework during spring break. I'm not going to do that to you guys. enjoy your break, see your families, do whatever it is that you want to do to kind of decompress and enjoy yourself during that time. Likewise, the week before during midterms, there will be no assignments that you have to turn in. I understand that a lot of other classes have actual midterm like test or projects. I'm not going to do that to you guys. So instead, you're going to have some human skeleton worksheets. I do ask that you complete those and kind of review them because it will make your life a lot easier when we get back from break and we are working on our forensic science section here. The week before finals is your last chance to submit any missing or late work. So May 10th, 11:59. If you are missing anything, you need to get it in by then if you want it to be graded. And I mean this for anything. If you miss something at the very beginning of the semester and you just never turned it in, you can turn it in during this week. You might not get full points for it, but you will get some points, which is better than none. So I really suggest that you guys take advantage of that. And then the very last thing that I wanted to talk about, and I will send out a Blackboard announcement that has a more formal invitation, but I do invite you guys, if you are able to be on campus at all, to join the in-person class on February 5th, which is a Thursday. Our in-person classes on Thursdays at 9:30 in the morning. But on the 5th, we will be doing a strawberry DNA extraction lab, which is a pretty fun hands-on one, so you are welcome to join for that. And then as well as right after spring break, we will do the mock case report, which I think is a lot more fun, but also a little bit easier to do in person. I will bring in some of our actual cadavers. These are just bones, by the way. These are not like fleshy material at all. But you guys will actually be looking at those to kind of build a biological profile case report for them. And it's just much easier to do forensic anthropology in person than it is just looking at photos. But of course, this is not required. You guys don't have to. I just like to extend the invitation. If you do want to join one of those, then I ask that you respond to my Blackboard announcement, like send me a Blackboard message telling me that you are going to join. That way I can make sure that I have enough materials prepared. So anthropology is really just the study of mankind, although we are looking at it throughout time and space. So context is very, very important for anthropology. And it's made up of things like biology, culture, and the environment. Culture specifically is probably the most important thing to anthropology because everything we do is looking at it through kind of this cultural lens. Otherwise, it wouldn't be any different than your standard understanding of like history or biology or language. It would just be those topics. There wouldn't be this human element to them, really. So what is biological anthropology? This is really just the study of human biology, but we have to do this within a framework of evolution and cultural variation. So again, culture is really central to this, and it's actually what makes us different from just studying biology. There are three principal areas of interest. So there is primatology, human evolution, and modern biological variation. I do want to give you guys a little bit of a note here. I fully understand that due to religious beliefs or just kind of, your own beliefs, that not everybody believes in evolution. I am not here to like brainwash you or to change your mind. It's fine if you don't have, your beliefs are your own. I just really ask that you guys keep an open mind and, continue to do the work in this class because it is required, and you should know how human evolution is understood from an anthropological perspective. So what is in a name? You might sometimes see biological anthropology be referred to as physical anthropology. These are essentially the same thing. It's really just a rebranding. So, unfortunately, biological anthropology has a very racist beginning. It really was just a bunch of like old rich white men that were measuring skulls to try and prove that, white people had superior intelligence, larger brains and, whatever, that they were better in these ways, that it was this intrinsic biological, truth. It's not. There is no truth to any of it. In the 1950s, anthropology had really started to shift away from these kind of beliefs. Now, actually, biological anthropology is kind of a forefront for championing against those kind of ideas and pushing, the truth of what we know in science, which is that humans really are not that different. There is no like intrinsic intellectual difference. There is no, human anatomy difference that leads any race to be better than another. But in the 1950s, change was happening. It was kind of slow. And one university professor, his name was Sherwood Washburn, was getting very fed up with how slow this change was taking to kind of spread across the field. And in response, he threw his entire collection of bones into the trash. This was a very attention-seeking act, and it did work. It did encourage a lot of change in the field, which was good. However, throwing human remains into the trash like that is not very ethical by our standards today. I would not recommend that. And unfortunately, it did kind of have this effect where a lot of other professors and people in the field kind of looked at it and were like, hey, free bones. And so they dug around the trash and added stuff to their own collections. It was also very unethical because at that time, most collections of human materials were not ethically sourced. So these were not all people that were donating their bodies to science. A lot of these remains belonged to Native Americans. So they were, dug up from archaeological sites. A lot of them were African American remains that were either kind of grave robbed or just like not given the proper burial rites that they should have been whenever they passed. So it's a very heavy topic. It's very unfortunate that that happened. Today, we have a lot more legal processes in place to prevent this kind of stuff from happening, and also to repatriate any remains that are found that might be connected to this kind of stuff, and to, punish anyone that tries to continue this kind of behavior. For a long time, people were finding pieces of Washburn's collection in their own modern collections, which was a problem given that they were so unethically sourced. However, it's almost impossible to find those in anyone's collection today because we are really working to make sure that all human remains collections are modern individuals that donated their bodies to science. So now biological anthropology is the standard or accepted name. However, you might still sometimes see it because in other countries, especially in the UK, they call it physical anthropology. They don't have that same negative association with that name that America does. Some older anthropologists still call it that just because they're used to that terminology, even if they don't believe in the racist notions that that name holds. And then there are some professional organizations that still call it physical anthropology, mostly just because they're really old organizations and it would be very confusing for members, as well as just a lot of money and a lot of processes to change it to biological anthropology. But none of them are in support of those initial beliefs. All right. So there are actually 4 main types of anthropology. There is cultural anthropology, biological anthropology, linguistic anthropology, and archaeology. Archaeology is probably what most people are a little bit more familiar with. This is going to be what you think of like with Indiana Jones. He is not a good archaeologist. Don't use him as like a reference for what archaeology is done or how to complete it in the best way. But archaeologists are going to be people that are working at actual field sites and kind of uncovering things. They also are going to be the people that are working on things like pottery, stone tools, so like arrowheads, things like that. Linguistic anthropology is just what it sounds like. It is anthropologists that study human language. So sometimes this is going to take the form of them actually like recording a dying language so that there is some kind of record that it existed. Sometimes they're going to be mapping how languages have evolved throughout time and space. Here you can see a photo of the Rosetta Stone. So that's like a really big, find in linguistic anthropology because it's kind of helpful as like a direct translation for the same thing in multiple languages. Biological anthropology is obviously what we're going to focus on in this course. And then there's cultural, and these are going to be obviously anthropologists that are really interested in different cultures. Oftentimes this is going to take the form of ethnography, so people actually going to different cultures, those populations, and kind of immersing themselves in it to understand those people's daily lives, their social interactions, how they live in a more natural kind of setting if they're studying like foragers. But plenty of anthropologists also study modern cultures. So there are anthropologists that study people in Ireland to understand that history or that language more. There are even anthropologists that study specifically like the United States. Likewise, there are so many subfields within these 4 main types that it's kind of crazy. You can specialize in a lot of different stuff in anthropology. And most anthropologists do not specialize in only one type. So a lot of anthropologists will kind of specialize in biological anthropology as well as archaeology. Cultural and linguistic anthropologists often overlap a lot, but all 4 of these can interlap in multiple different ways. So moving on to biological anthropology specifically. In this class, we're going to talk about some kind of main features of this field, one of which is recent human variation. So populations, while we are all at a species level, we are all insanely similar. There is variation by population. So depending on where you are growing up for generations in a specific environment, there are adaptations. For instance, there is a tribe that lives like in their entire lives on water, little floating kind of, villages, and they free dive to insane depths for insane amount of times, and they have actually developed larger spleens as well as lungs to be able to do that. There are also like anyone that for generations has lived in really high altitudes, they generally will develop some adaptations in their lungs and the way that they breathe so that it's easier for them. We'll also talk about osteology. This is just the study of bones. Most biological anthropologists have some degree of experience in this. Forensics, which is my passion. This can take multiple forms. So there are forensic anthropologists that, kind of like in this photo, will really work on like reconstructing what somebody might have looked like. So all those little dots that you see are skin and tissue depth markers. But it'll also take the form of doing stuff like I did, where you're actually just working on cases to build biological profiles for them. So, determining things like their age, their stature, their sex, their ancestry to try and help match them to missing persons reports and identify them. Some forensic anthropologists also, work more in kind of like the chemistry side. So they will be a lot more focused on preparing human samples for different types of testing, whether that be DNA testing or carbon dating. Pathology is the study of disease and trauma on bones. So some diseases you can actually see on the bone itself, like it will affect the morphology of that. But it's also like if you injure yourself, if you crack a rib or something, that will be included in a pathology report. Something that most people don't really think of when they think of biological anthropology is actually primatology, so the study of non-human primates. We study these because it can tell us a lot about our own human evolution, and we will talk more about them later in the semester. There's also primate paleontology, so this is the study of like ancient primates or extinct primates, as well as primate physical remains, so bones. And then human paleontology, which is sometimes called bioarchaeology. This is the study of ancient human remains. This is going to be those Neanderthals, Australopithecus, Homo erectus. I know that those names don't really mean that much to you right now, but we will discuss them as we move through this semester. But that is all I have for you guys today. So I am really looking forward to interacting and teaching you guys all this semester. I know most of you guys are not anthropology students, that's not your major, but I hope that you find some enjoyment in this class and that you find ways to apply what you learn here to other aspects, like in your specific degree plan or just in your life. If you have any questions, shoot me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I can.